Cecile, shall we start?
Okay. Good morning,
Thanks
everyone.
a lot. Thank you. Welcome to this webinar on soil health. So welcome to the third webinar on soil health. I have the pleasure to make the introduction and to introduce this webinar organized by Solvayr on technical soils for increased
it's your time.
territorial
We don't
resilience.
have the full screen. The
I am
presentation
Cécile Grand.
mode.
I'm working in the French Agency for
right.
Ecological Transition.
Okay.
We listen to you.
And
thank you.
Yes.
I have the pleasure to start speaking on technosoil. First, we have some rules. Your microphone is on mute. Please turn off your video. If you have any question, please, you can use a button, raise your hand, or you can use the chat. And if you want to share more information or document or reference, you can use a Miro board. The link is in the chat. And to keep the chat only for questions. The meeting will be recorded and published online on our website. So what we have in the agenda today, first we will have a presentation from Romain Lié. We present the concept of technosoil, definition, analytical framework, and assessment of ecosystem services. And then we will have 3 case studies. The first one will be presented by France, by Philippe Bataillard, creating fertile soil from field materials. The second one will be presented by Spain, from Juan Vilela Lozano. He will present the Gardelegui Technosoil project, reusing municipal waste for soil restoration. The third one will be a case study in Spain, presented by Ruben Leboreiro, about the carbon dioxide removal with tailor-made artificial soils. We will have a short break, and then we will have 2 more presentations. The first one will be from Netherlands. Leon Claassen will present using clay to make farmland resilient to climate change. And the second one will be from Belgium, and Romain de Rick will present the Belga Soils Project, major survey on technosoils and their perception in Wallonia. And then we will finish by a small time for discussion and question. What is Solvayr? Solvayr is a set finance platform for knowledge development and knowledge exchanges on soil and land management. We are convinced that it's important to add value and to join forces on issues of common interest for Solvayr members to progress on these matters. And our main motivation is to facilitate collaboration between experts, policymakers, and other stakeholders in order to improve methodologies and tools and providing guidance towards better management of soil. The Solvayr members are ADEME, the French Agency for Ecological Transition, the Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Management from Netherlands, the SPAC Agency and the Service Public of Wallonia, the Swedish Geotechnical Institute from Sweden, and IHOBE, new member, which is the environmental agency from Basque Country. Solvayr Health webinar series. Why we decide to organize this series? It's because the assessment and the management of soil health in relation to the European Soil Monitoring Law raises questions that we aim to address to this webinar series. What are the availability of soil health data? What are the scale of analysis and decision? What are soil measurements to be taken? What are the aggregate soil measurements and built? And how to build an integrated soil health index? What are the available tools to assess soil health? What are the sustainable measurements to preserve and restore soil health? And what are the technical and legal constraints for soil management? And then we have also some questions related to stakeholders' engagement and transformation challenges, how to raise awareness within your organization to put healthy soils on the agenda and make it part of management processes and procedures. How to create partnerships with land owners and land users, and how to bridge healthy soils with societal challenges, which are depending on healthy soils, like the greening cities, the climate adaptation, the food security, and healthy environment. Then we already organized different webinars. First, we set the scene, and this is webinar provided by Solver members, the whole country, France, Belgium, Netherlands, and Basque Country and Sweden. They present the overview of soil health in their country. And then we organize 2 webinars. The first was soil health and land planning. The second one was soil health and land project as the recycling brownfield. And today we have the third webinar on concept of technosoil. In the future, we will have the last one will be related to contaminated site management. You can save the date is the 20th of March because the registration will be open soon. If you want more information about the last webinar, you can find everything in the platform of Solver, the recording and the presentation and the whole document are in this platform. You have to go to the knowledge exchange pages and you can select the Solver meeting and you will find everything. When the webinar will going on, we propose you to answer some question. The question will be in the Mentimeter. The code will be in the chat. And at the end of this webinar, we will see your answer and we can discuss about that. The main question are what are the main gaps to restore soil health with engineered soils? How engineered soils are regulated in your country? Is it possible to use engineered soils without restrictions? Which conditions soil uses can be easily tested now without a legal frameworks? And does a high organic matter content automatically means that engineered soil is more healthy? And the last one, do you think that the ratio organic carbon clay is a main indicator to assess engineered soil health? So thank you for you to answer the whole question. Thank you for your attention. If you want to contact us, you can send message to the address infosolver.eu and you can follow Solver on LinkedIn. So now I invite our first speaker, Romain Lé, to open the video and to make the first presentation.
So hello everyone, I'm Romain Lé, and I will have the chance to introduce you to this webinar on TechnoSoil by giving you some common definition about soil and this sub-concept. So what are we going to talk about today are neosoil, technosoil. Soil is in general a very complex thing that can be seen very differently from everyone's perspectives. So I will start my presentation by giving you a definition of soil. Soil, as seen by everyone, can be seen as defined in the dictionary. So soil is a substance on the surface on the earth in which plants grow. But that's a very, very basic definition. I won't help very much today. So today we will have more scientific overview of soil and see soil as a mixture of mineral and organic matter, which are also mixed with liquid and gases. And this mixture is formed through pedogenesis, which is a process with different factors that will influence it. These factors are climate, relief, the parent material, the lives in the soil, and very importantly, the time, because soil is slowly forming. So can be also seen from a societal point of view, like we see in the directive, the fresh directive on soil monitoring and resilience, where soil is defined as resources that is non-renewable because it's not it's stable at a human time scale, so it's formed on very long time frame, and the healthy soil is able to provide ecosystem services I will present later on. So it's very important for society to maintain the health of soil as a resources. So now that we have seen soil, let's make some let's see some details. So first, the difference between natural soil and anthropic soil. So natural soil is the result of a transformation of the bedrock, degrade and enrich with organic matter through the process of pedogenesis. So it forms a complex ecosystem with a dynamic equilibrium with mineral inputs via the bedrock and organic inputs from the surface. But what if there is no equilibrium? Probably we are in a neosoil. A neosoil is a soil freshly formed after some specific event, which event can be from natural phenomenon like volcanic eruption or glacial retreat, or from anthropic source by anthropic activity like on embankment or from ill of mining residue. So this starting event will define if we are in a natural soil or in an anthropic soil. Currently, there are two definitions for anthropic soil in the World Reference Base. Among all the natural soil, there are of them two definitions. One for soil that have been strongly altered by longer and intensive agricultural use, which are the anthrosoil. And one concept we will talk a lot about today, the technosoil, which are soil containing a significant amount of artifact. And those soil are strongly influenced by human activity. And in general, anthropic soil have a rather negative connotation because they are seen as degraded. They are most of the time not perceived as healthy. So to sum up this first part of my presentation about terminology, let's review all of them. So soil is a general concept that can be seen of very different perspective. Can be from natural sources, natural phenomenon, or anthropic due to anthropic activity. When soil is still forming and not stable, it will be called we'll call it the neosoil. That can be either natural or anthropic. Anthropic can be divided in anthrosoil or technosoil. And what we will talk about today can have a different, could be named differently because anthrosoil and technosoil are soil in place, which have a rather negative connotation. So Cécile just talked about engineered soil, but there is no name really about what we are going to present you. We will use most of the time TechnoSoil, but what we will present you is rather an approach than a thing. This approach is considering the ecosystem services that healthy soil are providing. So what are the ecosystem services? So, there are all the services that have kind of an economic value that are provided by an ecosystem, and soil is an ecosystem. Soil can, for example, contribute to crop production or water regulation, carbon sequestration, all of the things that we need for a functional society. So one way to relate the scientific assessment of soil to the ecosystem services and the use of the space we make is the soil quality index. So the goal of this tool is to relate soil property to the ecosystem services, and then the ecosystem services to how we plan to use some space. So this tool is based on a predefined relation between the different aspects. For example, if we plan to use the soil for residential use, and we will probably watch the capacity, look at the capacity of the soil to provide technical support. That will depend on its structure and its compactability, its water retention. But how does the tool really work? It starts with the measurement of the soil property. So, for example, the water retention as a measure. It will compare different approach to this measure. So, firstly, the quality, which is the measure quality of the soil, but we can also assess the potential, which will be the maximal quality of a soil if it was at its full capacity, if the most healthy, and the health, which is the gap between the quality and the potential. So this assessment of each property of the soil will help to give a state of health of the soil, and can be then related to its capacity to provide ecosystem services, because if the quality necessary of different property to provide one ecosystem services is too low, the capacity of the soil to provide this ecosystem services will be very low. And if a soil has a very high capacity to provide one ecosystem services, but you plan to use the land and to degrade it in the approach of soil monitoring and resilience, it will be better to adapt the project to preserve the soil resources. So the tool can be used in many different ways, and this tool is an introduction to the approach of TechnoSoil we are going to, that will be presented to you today. So the approach to engineer soil, TechnoSoil, soil construction and soil improvement is an approach that will use different aspects. So the identification of the soil quality and the potential by control over physical, chemical, and biological properties. So properties of this property measurement is the basis of this approach. Then the identification of the service needed either in the framework of a project or in a land management approach. The identification of the available material to improve or build the soil. The material that we will try to identify are mostly waste, because we don't want to deplete natural resources, but we will try to find waste that can find very added value, concept of waste here is a little bit complicated, because if you use them properly, there are no waste anymore. They are secondary resources. And as we saw, soil is formed over time, so it's not something you build and you leave it like this. So for this approach, need also to consider a proper monitoring of the environmental and technical quality of the soil initially and over time, because the engineered soil, Technosoil, will stabilize over time after the original formation. So the application of this approach require technical expertise in soil conception, and it requires as well application techniques to ensure that soil is structuring properly. This approach is still experimental for now, and mostly project-based, but it's slowly generalizing. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you for the first presentation and the presentation of theory and concept and definition of the technosoils. That's something seems always complicated for all of us. So I have a question in the chat. Which ecosystem services are you considering to evaluate soil health? Is it possible for you to?
Yeah, well, it really depends on the project, because, well, it depends on the soil property. Some soil will never provide some ecosystem services very efficiently, because they have structural property that are limiting them. So you have to consider the soil in place. And if you are considering building a soil or improving it, you really have to take the project perspective. It depends on what you want to do with the space, and then you can improve the soil based on your needs.
Okay, thank you. So there is no more question. So I propose to invite the next speaker, Philippe Bataillard, that he will present the research project FrischEco, I think, and what is going on in this case study. Thank you. Thank you, Romain.
Okay, thank you, Cécile. Do you see my screen? Not yet?
Not yet. So Philippe Bataillard from BRGM from France. So I let you.
You see my screen? Yes?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, you can start. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot. So my name is Philippe Bataillard. I am a soil scientist and I work for the BRGM in Orléans, France. So thank you to the Solver team.
Philippe, I'm sorry, the presentation is not in the presentation mode. We can see
indeed
on the left of the screen, we can see the whole slides. Yeah, great. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you to give me the opportunity to present this work, the objective of which is to develop a method for creating fertile soils from various urban materials, including excavated earth. Some context element before presenting the method, the developed methodology. The scene takes place in Marseille, where the Euro-Mediterranean Public Development Agency has the mission of transforming the city to make it more resilient to global changes. And nearly 500 hectares are concerned by this transformation in the heart of the city of Marseille. And more precisely, in in one of these areas of the city, it is planned to transform an old industrial area into a 20-hectare park. And the park must, of course, become a wooded promenade area for the citizens, for the inhabitants. But it must also serve as a buffer zone for rainwater during exceptional events. And to achieve this park, more than 45,000 cubic meters of fertile soils will be needed. The developer wants to use the site materials as much as possible to reduce the environmental impact of the work. The challenge is therefore to transform very mineral materials into a multifunctional soils. The principle of the approach is thematized on this diagram on the bottom right here. And it aims to find secondary materials and organize them in a mixture and in layers to reconstruct a soil that is as functional as possible. But finally, how to choose these materials and ensure their potential to transform into soils? This question has been explored in the framework of the FreeCheco research project that is currently partially funded by ADEME. Before presenting the developed approach, let's specify that the FreeCheco project is not limited to the characterization of the site materials only, and is also interested in other sources of materials that could be useful for making fertile soils and which are located near the site. We already know that the materials are very mineral on the site, and that they will require an input of organic matter in the form of compost, of course. Hence, the idea of identifying the platform that produce compost near the site is very important. And we also performed an inventory of fine materials such as silts and clays. On this slide, you have a map that presents the other sources identified near the site to be refunctionalized. And we call this concept of urban soil manufacturing from urban waste the small soil cycle. That is an anthropic cycle that aims to federate soil producers and consumers in order to increase the circular economy of soil materials on the territory. Okay, now let's finally look at this method developed to express the potential of a material to transform into soils. To start, let's recall that soil fertility has a lot to do with its chemical and mineral composition and its structure. This structure is designed to be porous to allow the passage of water, air, and roots, and to reconcile chemical reactivity and porosity. It is best to favor organomineral associations, such as those presented in the following diagram. It is the result of association between clays, often 2,1 or TOT clays, and organic matter, of course, stabilized by calcium ions. So this edifice, which multiplies in space, will allow the appearance of a porous and very reactive structure that constitute an excellent biotope for the soil biosynthesis. So consequently, our approach is to have a look to the texture of the materials we want to transform into soils. If needed, correct the structure, correct also the organic matter content, and have a look also to the mineralogy with a focus on the type of clays, looking for 2,1 clays, of course, and carbonated materials. At least we will take care of the structure of the mixtures, and why not superimposing layers of different nature to give the future soil the porosity it needs to allow the transfer presented. Finally, the aim is to formulate a mixture with a high potential for organomineral aggregation. I prefer talking about potential than really fertility of soils. To characterize the mineralogy of the clays, we need X-ray diffraction, which is known to be a relatively expensive technique, cost around 1,000 euros, deliverable included, per sample. So, which is difficult to access for a large number of samples. But for FreeCheco, we had the chance to have an innovative device that is transported on the field and which allows the simultaneous analysis of the mineralogy by X-ray diffraction and the content of trace metal elements by X-ray fluorescence. And this device allows us to analyze around 30 samples per day, which is quite a lot. And thanks to it, we were able to analyze over 100 samples on the site and outside the site. In the end, on the site, we managed to classify the available materials into 3 large groups, including group 3, which has the best potential for use as in soil construction. It is indeed relatively fine materials, which contains about 50% of clays. It is present between 2 and 3 meters deep on the site, sorry. But unfortunately, it is not completely free of contamination. And finally, a coding system has been proposed to the project owner. It consists of a digit and 2 letters. The digit expresses the clay rate present. The first letter expresses the type of clay present, and the second letter, the level of contamination of the analyzed materials. And this codification is accompanied by a reading key. A material classified, for example, 25AA has an excellent potential to serve as a base for soil construction. And thanks to this knowledge of the materials, formulations have been proposed to the project owners and will soon be tested in the framework of an experimentation garden that will be implemented in September 2006 on the site. To conclude, so how can we express a material's potential to transform into a soil ecosystem? Okay. So here we postulate that knowledge of the quantity and type of mineral clay is essential. To this end, we are experimenting with the democratization of mineralogic measurement using X-ray diffraction and proposing interpretation keys. Finally, the material on the site are classified simply according to this potential, and corrective additions are proposed in order to obtain the most balanced formulation possible. That includes the total organic carbon, the mineralogy, and the texture, taking into account the ability of the materials on the site and in the surrounding environment. Among the indicators in the soil directive that are useful in helping to formulate this, we believe that the organic carbon clay, be aware that it is about granulometric clay, not mineralogical clay. So the organic carbon clay ratio is key, as it expresses the aggregation potential of the mixture. So indeed, thanks to the work of Johannes et al. In 2017, we can estimate the input of organic matter necessary in the mixture to obtain a porous aggregate structure. A carbon to clay ratio of 8 leads to a very good aggregation, a ratio of 10 to a satisfactory structure, and a ratio of 13 induces a denser and more massive structure. And you know that the soil monitoring directive has retained this limit of 13 as an indicator of poor soil health. So we believe that this carbon to clay ratio is very important, is a very important indicator for expressing the fertility of the future soil. And to finish, I would like to emphasize that the interest of many other communities in this concept of small soil cycle in France. This is, for example, the case of the Orléans metropolitan area, with which we are in the process of setting up a project whose objective will be to carry out an inventory of the soil materials available on its territory, to anticipate the needs in fertile soils, to train the various stakeholders on this small soil cycle. And for this purpose, we will deploy the BDSOLU, that is a database dedicated to urban soil. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Philippe Bataillard, for the whole presentation and the conclusion of your work and what is going on, I think, in the subject. So
yeah, Absolutely, yes.
Maybe we can have some question if people want to select the button and want to ask question. In the chat, we have one. Are there any legal restrictions concerning the use of soil material available at the site? Contamination levels which do not allow to use on the site and are needed to deposit in a controlled way. So what's the problem with pollution?
Contamination is always a problem. It is a problem of risk. And in France, the French regulation specified that if you do not, if the material do not get out the site, it is not a waste, and you can reuse it on the site if, of course, it is suitable for the use you want to do with it. So, in the next step of this work will be to perform some risk assessment to make sure that the materials are suitable for soil construction, for example. And it will depend on the use that will be done, if children will play on the ground, or if it be only for example, a forest where people won't be able to go there. You see what I mean? So contamination is always a problem, but it can be managed thanks to this way on a site.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for complete answer. Okay, thanks a lot. And now I think we can invite the next speaker, Juan Villela, and it's for you. I let you make the presentation. Can you share your screen, please?
Yes. Okay. I don't see my presentation, sorry. Let's try again. Okay. Okay, do you see the presentation?
Yes, but it's not, yeah.
It's in full mode now? Okay.
Mode screen, yeah.
Okay, I just see my presentation. I don't see the webinar. Okay, so I'll put my chrono here to stay to the time. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming to this webinar and Cecile for inviting me to speak. I will speak in behalf of the City of Vitoria-Gasteiz. I work for the Center of Environmental Sciences of the City Hall. And I will talk about an experimental project that we developed through 3 years, in 2013 until 2016. It's called the Gardelegi Technosoils. Gardelegi is the landfill of the city. And I also want to thank the help of the NACER Agronomic Research Institute and the Basque University of the Public University of the Basque Country that helped us developing the project. So to give a little context, Vitoria is the capital of the Basque Country. It's a mid-city to have 250,000 people in the north of Spain, and it's known as a green city. We won the European Green Capital Award in the year 2012. One of the reasons is because of the environmental policies of the city, and one of the most famous projects is the Greenbelt that you see in this screen, this kind of series of parks surrounding the city. So in 2013, we were in the middle of a green infrastructure plan, trying to bring nature into the city. So this is the plan for that, through a series of corridors and nodes of green infrastructure. And in order to do that, we were looking at the soils and the available spaces to do that. And this is a map of vacant land. So this is public and private land that had no use by then. And we were proposing to do some temporary uses or permanent uses of green infrastructure over them. But we realized in some of these areas, we did have no soil or very little soil. And as it has been mentioned before, we need a healthy soil to support green infrastructures on top of them. So that's why, after looking at some other experimental projects that were done by NACER in a quarry, reusing materials, trying to create a new soil or a technosoil, meaning a soil artificially made but behaves as a natural soil. We took a look, as Philippe has mentioned, the same as in France, we were looking around at what kind of materials do we have that we can use to produce a soil. But in our case, because we are a city, we were looking at municipal residues. So in this picture, you see construction and demolition waste plant that they had residue that was mostly, let's say, kind of a soil or earthy material. After all this selection of other kind of materials coming from the construction and demolition waste, we also had from the urban waste, not the organic waste, but the urban waste. In our case, it's the gray container. We had, we call this biocompost, so it's organic matter mostly. And we also had another source of organic matter coming from the gardening of the city, so pruning and things like that. So basically, we were facing, trying to solve these three problems. Let's say the lack of healthy soil in the city, a lot of vacant land to restore, and all these unwasted, unused materials, because they had no use, were sent to the landfill. So trying to avoid also and try to promote the circular economy, we came with the idea of constructing these technosoils, considering this originally considered residues, transform them into resources. So we did this proposal of mixing these materials in several ways. So we had six mixes that are named with M11, mix 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 1, and so on. Basically, the 1 and 2 at the end mean that we have a double content of organic matter, double dose. So we had these materials, the compost, biostabilized compost, and the pruning in a double dose, mixed with the main material, which was the construction and demolition earthy soil. The first one is just the three materials. The second one includes some remnant soil in the vacant land, and the third one includes some bentonites recycled from a local industry. The experimental design was done in the landfill itself and included the 6 mixes put in cells by triplicate and 4 cells dedicated to the ingredient themselves. So that's 24 cells or plots. We put vegetation on top of them, and we established a 3-year program control to follow the evolution of these technosoils. I will explain briefly the construction phases. So these are like cells, as I said. So we have, let's say, the shape. We put in the bottom of this cell a tube, so we could collect the water running through the technosoil. Then we have 20 centimeters of a pervious layer. We did have then 40 centimeters of this RCD, construction and demolition waste earth. And then on top of that, we had the mix with the organic matter and the other materials. The vegetation covers were 4 types because we had different intentions for the infrastructure. So the first one is to establish a lawn or a forest for restoration, including trees, shrubs, and herbs. We did also put some energy crops, like a rotation of crops that could produce biodiesel. And also in thinking about producing biomass with the technosoils, we planted willow. These are the planting scheme with the species and the distribution. So you see in this first step, just the willows and the forest on the left. Here you can see the 4 types with the rapeseed and the lawn. And these are the calendar for the monitoring. The first months dedicated to the technosoil construction. These are the plantings, and this is the monitoring program. In terms of monitoring, I should mention that we were looking at 3 things by the local regulations. So we had to look at the soil itself, something like parameters of the soil. Then we did have to do a forced lixiviation of the soil on the lab. They are called eluates, and this is because we had to apply the residues regulation. They are considered residues. Sorry, yes, residues. And third, we had to collect these leachates, the water running through the soils, just to check if there was any hazard to water systems. So meaning that if you put, let's say, this technosoil next to a stream, you don't pollute the stream. These are just pictures from the sampling. This is before we do the mixes, we took a look at we analyzed the ingredients alone, and then we started to collect samplings from the soils of the mixes, the technosoils themselves. This is a picture of the eluate analysis, and this is a picture of the sampling of the leachates. We opened those tubes when they were filled or after heavy rain. We also monitor the evolution of the vegetation. We wanted to know if the vegetation was healthy. So we're looking at growth and biomass production. And now we'll shortly show some results. The first, I think is the most important one, is just to show that when we look at the ingredients by themselves, our regional regulation consider them as residues. And what that means, it means that there are some levels of pollution or metals or organic components that are beyond a threshold, after they surpass, they go above a limit. So if this happens, we cannot use them in a urban environment. So we could not use them in the city. They would have to go to the landfill. But after you mix them, these levels get lower, and the material is considered like an inert material. So it's more similar to a natural soil, and we can apply them in the city. So we can use them. So it's safe to use them. These are the results just by parameter on the different measurements we took. There is a paper on this, so I won't explain a lot here. I just want to show these graphics because visually it's easy to see how in time, well, in the back you see December 13, December 2014, 15, the 3 years of measurements, how these values of the different parameters in the beginning, they are higher. So that these are the legal limits that we cannot go above. But after 6 months or between 6 months and a year, they go down, and they are more stable. And they behave, and the technosoil behaves as a, let's say, a natural soil. So there is no risk. And this happened in several parameters that we measured, and in most of them, almost most of them. In terms of the vegetation analysis, we were looking at the biomass production, and in most of the mixes that have the double dose of organic matter, lawn and the crops grew the best, grew more than the others, as expected. And in terms of the forest plantation, we were looking at the survival rate, and the best performance was done by the shrubs. So that was interesting for us in terms of the planting scheme we could propose later if we want to do a forest restoration. This is the same by species, so we could look at the performance of different species and see from this list which are the best to use in the future. And this is the analysis of the willow survival. We did have a drought in the second year, so that's all this black are dead willows. But we could also follow the evolution to see which mix was better for different use. So in conclusion of this project, time proved to be a fundamental factor in understanding the dynamics of technosoils. Most of the variations in the parameters occur during the first year, and after this period, the mixtures tend to become more homogeneous, so they are more stable. So, in our opinion, in our case with these materials, it is recommended to allow a time frame of 1 year before installing these technosoils, let's say, outside of the landfill in the city. Also, mixtures with a single dose of organic matter were more stable than those with a double dose. So we could either reduce this amount or do the organic amendments in time, let's say 5 years later after installation, or every 5 years. And the mixture M11 was the best for use. Also, in terms of vegetation, lawn, agricultural crops, and forest plantations, especially shrubs, show the most satisfactory growth. And for every type of vegetation, there was a different preference for type of mixture. So depending on the use, you could choose from one mix or the other. Finally, just to give a thought about what we did after this, we learned a lot of lessons, and also the collaboration with the universities and research centers was very, very important for us to check this kind of experimental projects. And we had different degraded or polluted areas where we wanted to work with technosoils. This is just to show a periphery of the city with an abandoned vacant land that was polluted. We studied adding organic matter. We knew that organic matter was fundamental to give back life to these kind of soils that are, let's say, frozen in time in terms of biological activity. And every time we do a restoration, we come with this organic amendment. In this case, we also included a rotation of crops. This is meant to be a park, but let's say that for 3 or 4 years, we do a rotation in crops and we collect the harvest and we put it on the soil. So it's an organic amendment of 3 years, and then we establish the park with the trees and the shrubs. We also started working with different health parameters that we didn't measure before, that they are basically telling us how the organisms are working in the soil, because we know they reflect the soil health. So today, in this kind of projects, beyond the psychochemical analysis, heavy metal and organic matter measurements, we look at the basal respiration and induced respiration to see the microbial activity. We also look at the functional microbial diversity. We do some phytotoxicity tests. So if the plants and the organisms are healthy, the soil is healthy. And we also include some structural diversity, so microbial communities analysis. And I will finish just mentioning, if you're interested in this kind of projects, these are the websites for some phytoremediation projects and from a urban soil restoration living lab that we started last year, and we will go for 4 more years. And finally, this is just a link for the paper where you can get more details and some highlights of the paper. Thank you very much. I'll stop sharing my screen.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, very nice project, and you go, and it's going further. I think you are still doing some analysis on the field. And how long you will continue the survey of the experimental?
The TechnoSoil experiment finished in 2018.
2000.
Yes. We continue to do some restoration projects, but that experimental project itself, it ended in 2018. It's finished. Yes. Right. We plan to use the TechnoSoils in restoration projects this year.
Okay. Thank you. So we have some question in the chat. So what caused the strong lowering of the soil value measure over the year? Oh, sorry.
I see the question. I'll try to answer short. If the answer is too short, then you can email me, because there are many conclusions of this project. But basically, it's not so much of the action of the plants. It is more that is very unstable in the first months. It's just because of this mixture of materials, and also because the pH is quite high. So let's say they are very volatile, or they mobilize a lot of let's say elements, but in time they get to be stabilized. So it's kind of like a dynamic. So it's very alive, the mixture, and then it's stabilized.
Okay.
I see. In Wallonia, mixing waste is not allowed. Pollution dilution. Okay. In Spain, there is no regulation specific for technosoils. There is only a regional regulation in Galicia, in the north of Spain. I think Ruben, the next speaker, can talk about it. But yes, we had to apply all the regulations available. So since there is no regulation, residues regulation applies, pollution regulation applies, water ecosystem risks regulation applies. So it is, we had to do it as Romain said, as a project-based and experimental design. So that's why we needed the extra monitoring from external parties as the university and the research center to check there was no harm.
And if we want to add additives in the
Okay,
soil,
so we
which
have
are not waste,
still
but
some questions.
products,
Maybe we
as,
have time
for
for
instance,
it.
lime or things like that, of
Where
course, we
phyto
need
management
a
plants
lot of
use for
authorization as well.
contact
Or
zone for the
biochar.
topsoil layer. There are limits with this naturally in regards to uptake, of course. I'm just curious if it was considered in the selection.
Yes, willows were selected not only because they produce biomass, but because they are very good plant for phytoremediation. But this was not a phytoremediation project. After this, we did one where we were using crops with willows and poplars to do the contamination. And in that project, it's called the Phytosudoe, we did look at the contamination uptake. And it was a question of 2 or 3 years that we could clean the soil with phytoremediation.
Okay, thank you. And somebody wants to ask you if you calculate the cost of removed CO2 zone.
We did calculate the extraction of carbon through the biomass. You can know how much carbon we were collecting in the vegetation. We did not, and we did the measure of carbon in the soil, but I don't have the economics. I don't have the cost.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Yeah, great.
Okay.
So we listen to you. Thank you.
Yes. Well, in 2021, I started with also the Ministry of Rijkswaterstaat, who's joining the Solver and Life project, and it's about using clay to make farmland climate proof. And it's clay we are not using for dikes and bricks. It's clay who's coming free out of works, let's say, the topsoil of former agricultural land. Next slide. And why do we do that? Because of the climate changes, sandy soils have to be more, they have problems with water pressures and so on. Next slide. And that's agricultural on sandy soils has suffer from effects, what I say, from the climate change, and also crop yields decline during dry periods. That's sandy soils are the most vulnerable, and we have to think more in the future for climate change and what could we do about changing the sandy soils. Next slide. Because if you make a map of the EU and further, where are those intensive agricultural sandy soils are lying, then you see this map. That's a lot of hectares. And also the LIFE project was indeed about, if you do that measure, to put clay on, a little bit of clay on the sandy soils, where could you do that? And where could the agriculture have a sustainable future in case of the climate changes? And that's this map. So yeah, it's a lot of countries where the measurement is in potential a good thing. Next slide. Where am I working? I'm working for the province of Gelderland. It's a part of the Netherlands, and it's lying in a big part of the province is sandy soils. We have a lot of agricultural land in our province. Also, the white spot is nature, white spots, and urban places. And we also have drinking water reserves, and that's yeah, it's also becoming with the climate changes more heavier to win the drinking water. Next slide. So what we did in Gelderland is make a map and scoring the soil ecosystem services. And those who we did score was, of course, the agricultural primary production, which is related to the soil types, of course, also the water retention, the climate regulation, carbon storage, capacity of the soils, the nutrient cycling. And the last one we did unfortunately get not enough data for was the soil scoring to biodiversity. And also an interesting one I saw in the present speaker was, which we didn't map yet, was the restoration capacity of the pollutants. If you the reused soil, the soil can restore itself. To make that mapping, we have, of course, measurements, and it's a set of different measurements. If I have more time, then I could tell you, but it's in the Netherlands we use the BLN, and there are a lot of parameters to score the soil off. And we also, the last years, we are also getting the last one, biodiversity of soils measurements to also map the soil biodiversity. So the sandy soils were also mapped, and what we see is that the sandy soils are scoring about the soil ecosystem services the lowest, and that's of course the sandy soils have a lower primary production, water regulation is not always good, and also the carbon sequestration could be more, and the nutrient leaking in sandy soils is also vulnerable. Next slide. So farmers do this sort of types of measurements in the more vulnerable sandy soils. Of course, green manure is a good thing, crop rotation, compost, and perennial grassland. But there are a lot of arable lands used in the sandy soils, and that's the more vulnerable thing because of the ecosystem services which I mentioned. Next slide. So our thought before starting the LIFE project was when you see the mapping I showed earlier from the sandy soils, we have also big river catchment areas, and nearby there are the more clayey soils, and that's all over the European sand belt. You have rivers in that within that area. Next slide. And the project is about when you use that clay in the riverbeds and you spread it over the vulnerable sandy soils, what do we get then? Well, we are not talking about very thick layers to spread on the sandy soils. But if you are doing that, then the thought is the top layers of the sandy soils are getting a mixture between the good things of the sandy soils. It's more arable and more warming up in the season, so that's good for crop and nature, of course. And the good thing from clay soils is more of course more fertile, and there are also more things that do that more better than the sandy soils. Next slide. And if you see the soil types in the Netherlands, we mix two things. Left is the sandy soils, the red spot, and you see the percent of sandy soils in the map I showed is in the left, and they are not. They have a very low percent of clay and silt, and we mix it with the spot more above in the clay sound, and then you get another soil. Next slide. And we have a website in which that's more explained how we do that and how farmers can get those clay. But you can see it yourself on the site liveco2cent.eu. Next slide. And what we do? It's very technical figure, but the farmers have now the red sandy soil, and between the vertical axis you see the VP and the FC. Between that's where the plants are getting the moisture. So that's for sandy soils very low, and for clay soils that's it's more usable moisture for the plants. And what we do is you add a little bit of the clay soils to the vulnerable sandy soils, so you will have a better soil. The green arrow is using that. Next slide. Also, former speakers talked about the clay humus complex. That's in a very poor sandy soil. It's not having a high clay content, so you can create the clay humus complex when you add a little bit of clay to the sandy soils. And it's in those figures you can see clay is the clay minerals have more binding capacity for the humus complex. Next slide. And why did we expect that it could work? Well, there were people from Australia who did this trick before, but they were lucky to have clay in the underground. So they excavate clay in the underground and put them above their sandy soils. And they measured for 29 years what it did with soil with the SOC, the soil, the carbon storage in the soil, which they created, and which what you see is that the content of the SOC is raising 1.9 tons per year, and that's a very good thing. We are measuring in our fields if we are also gonna create that, but we are now 4 years measuring, and it's a little bit becoming higher. Next slide. And what's our approach? We will increase soil, water, and carbon retention, of course. And the clay we are getting from land developments who are already have to be done. Let's say Rijkswaterstaat, the party, is a very there are a lot of clays coming from the floodplains for the storage of the water frame directive. And what we do is put a thin layer of clay, not a real thick one, to the farmlands, and we say do it not for the mixture, the natural mixture of the soil, for the uptake of the clay layer into the sandy soils. Do it 1 to 3 centimeters and more gifts. So take, let's say, 3 years, and the target for the best soils we think is 8% of clay content. So the little particles. And the project connects also indeed the civil engineering works to, and that's almost our public works, to the agriculture, the farmers who are asking for to improve their soils. And we are on a good way. The next slide will tell you that. Because in Gelderland we have in the project some demonstration fields where we have a non-treated zone and treated zones, and we measure the differences. We have a lot of replications done, and we are now on 600 hectares, and that's a good thing. And the province has financed the transport between the public excavation projects and the farmers for most of the transport. And 100 farmers have already received clay. Next slide. What are the observations from the farmers? The roots are seeking up the clay clods. The dry periods are postponed. Of course, the higher the soil gets a higher CEC capacity, and also there's a better uptake from the nitrogen in the soil, so less leaching. We are counting worms. They are bigger and some more, and the most for the farmers a very good thing is that the dry matter yields is better, and also more quality. We are measuring in maize of the starch. Next slide. Also, when we have to take up this measurement more, we are dealing with challenge. Farmers do not want bricks in the clay, of course. They are sometimes in it. The first applying for clay on the farmland were with normal manure spreaders, but that's is a fast wear of them. So most farmers use more heavy, more clay spreaders who have more thicker equipment. And a challenge is already said by former speakers, is we only use in this project the clean clay, but in the floodplains we would like to have more slightly contaminated clay, so that there are more. So that's for the reuse goals. It's a better thing. And of course, we can measure. We measure the quality of the clay, and you do not above a certain risk level apply it. Next slide. What we do in project to promote this demo days, and a good thing we did is having an SCBA. So it's counting what is it the ecosystem service doing from a long time period, and how do you find it, how you can put those ecosystem service in a financial rate. And what we also do is, have done is putting up a marketplace. So the projects which release clay can put their clay on the place, and also the farmers who needs clay can ask them. So, and then you can have a match if those farmers are lying in the vulnerable sandy soils map. Next slide. And I can tell you a little bit more about the SCBA. How do you do it? In the project, we did the first assessment this year of last year, and by the end of the project, we will improve it. Next slide. In the SCBA, there are cost items, which are said the most cost are for transport cost for the clay, and also the farmer has to have some cost because they have to spread it out to their land. But there are, next slide, in the SCBA for benefits, and that are these. The first one is, of course, some impacts which are negative, but that is not a very negative range. I mean, that's not a very high negative score. We calculated with diesel, but if you transport with electric, then it would be also different. Benefits from more fertility of soils, benefits from water retention, and these are also the ecosystem services. The uptake from more carbon to the soil. We have farmers don't have to use more pesticides because better yields. The water quality gets better, and also there are some biodiversity benefits. Next slide. And if you
yeah, I ask you maybe to be short, to finish shortly, and to.
I'm almost there.
Yeah.
If you calculate those benefits, you see that it's a positive thing to do this measurement. Next slide. Also, you have to do with sensitivity analysis, but then it stays positive. Next slide. And we are now in the process of upscaling. And our goal is to treat 700 hectares in 2020, and we are going to make this, I think. And also, the sand belt is laying not only in the Netherlands, what you see, and yeah, my question is also to uptake it in other lands of the sand belt. Also, the policy can do things because the soil quality regulation, as mentioned earlier, yeah, it can be better if you look at the whole range of ecosystem services you improve. Then I say, well, also the soils with less quality than clean, it would be better to use them also. Next slide. And I would like to thank you for your attention.
Okay, thanks a lot, Leon Claassen. I just maybe time for one question, but not more, because we are a bit late and we have to stop for a coffee break. Or maybe you can answer the last question. Have you attempted to achieve the same soil properties improvement objectives using organic amendment rather than clay amendment?
Sorry, read question.
Maybe you can read the last question that it's in your chat. Did you compare the soil properties improvement objectives to compare clay amendment and organic amendment?
We did not compare it, but when I talk to farmers, they say when they use organic amendments in sandy soils, they say, well, after 1 year in dry and warm periods, the organic is blown away and is not there anymore. And when you add clay, there you can get the clay humus complex, so the binding capacity and the carbon measurements you take stay better in the soil.
Convenience, okay. Then let's next slide, please. Okay, this is the no, this is not the first. What we are not in the second slide, I think. Yeah, okay, this is the first one. And we have been starting to work with artificial soils many years ago in different mines in Spain and South America. This first one is an application on slopes in a tunnel construction in a mine in Spain in April 2014, with different times and different periods of application of artificial soil. Then we started with the control in the top, in the left hand. You can see the control, dark sand. And there were two appliances, one in October 2014 and April 2015. Why? Because in October it rained a lot in Galicia, and where the construction was, and there was a lot of leachate, and the land was moving. And then we decided to apply a second in April 2015, and the results you can see were completely different and at the same slope and with the same material. Then next slide, please. This is another mine in South Spain. All these are, I would like to say, this one is not a commercial project. Okay, we were working in a metal mine with a lot of acid water, and we produce different soils in order to reduce the amount of acid water, and that was the result. You can see in the right, you can see the difference between one and another situation. There is a plot in the bottom. There is the Greek one is with nothing. Is the deposit, and the other is the big one, the big photo, and in the right is the vegetation starting to grow. At the same time, apart from recovering vegetation, we was treating acid water as well. Okay, next slide, please. Next, please. No, sorry, the former one, please. This is another mine, also in Peru. We are working only here, and other my colleagues have said, with material coming from the mine. We were not introducing in the mine material from outside. We were trying to work here with high slopes, and the result you can see in the right, the difference between the center photograph and the one in the right. You can see the difference of the material with the high slope and deposit. Okay, next one. Yeah, and I would like to concentrate now in and our experience in artificial soil as CDR technology. Okay, this is the content of the project, the Carbon Sink project, and we are in the middle now. We start in the third year, and we have some results. Okay, go ahead, please. Well, this is artificial soils technology. You can see here that the initial condition was that artificial soil can sequester more carbon from CO2 in organic form than natural soil. Why? Because it improves soil health and encourages vegetation growth by increasing the amount of root exudates. Okay, next one, please. Next one, please. Oh, no, that's so sorry, the other one. Sorry to. It's not easy for me to work like this. Why artificial soils capture more CO2 than natural soils? Okay, when we do artificial soils, we add specific residues or materials. Let's say we have been talking before about the concept of residues or materials. That's a legal issue. I'm not going to enter on that because the definition of residue and material subproduct is very complicated for me. But the residues we use have high accounts of magnesium and calcium silicates. Those silicates react with carbon from forming CO2, forming calcium and magnesium carbonates, which are stable in the long term. In the next slide, please. This is some bibliography that we have found around artificial soils as CDR technology. During all the morning, we have been talking about this is a new technology, of course. It's not very implemented. It's not well developed. And as a consequence, there is not of bibliography regarding CDR technology as artificial soil. Then we have some documents here, and we use it for our project, of course. And aside, I'm saying there's not a lot of information. I think the biggest issue in this technology is to advance in legislation. Okay, somebody, I think that Juan Vilela from Vitoria-Gasteiz has said there is only one regulation in Spain, in my region, in Galicia, because there was a professor who was in the beginning of the century, trying to develop the technology, and he produced a regulation for artificial soil. Is the only one we know at this stage, and is the regulation that people working in Spain with this technology is using. I understand that it's not enough, and then I hope that the Commission decide to go ahead with this technology, because it's very useful, we think, in order to not only to restore soils, but also in decontaminating soils and landscape and so on. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the real experiment that we have now in this mine in Pasek, in the north of Spain, in the project. We produce, we design 6 plots with different treatments. The first one in the right is the control, and the others are with different amounts of artificial soils, and some of them combined with biochar, some of them combined with dunite, and the 6th one is combined with dunite and biochar. Why we use dunite in this experiment? Because the mine, Pasek mine, is a mine of dunite, and dunite is not considered. Has a lot of olivine, and olivine is a mineral that absorbs a lot of carbon. Then we will using combination of artificial soil and dunite, and also you use biochar, because biochar also is during the production of biochar, there is a lot of carbon removal. Next one, please. Well, we are now, as I told you, in the third year. We have been monitoring during the last 24 months. And during the last, well, we have some results, but it's not enough. It's not enough results now. We are monitoring because monitoring is critical to our project success. Over the 24 months, we have meticulously tracked a wide array of variables to assess soil health and CO removal efficiency. This period includes 12 months of monitoring, followed by 12 months of focused demonstrative testing. The idea is that our methods provide a new standards to soil restoration and carbon. But as I told you before, we are in the middle or starting the third year of the project, and we have not definite results. I hope to have, of course, we have to have definite results at the end of project in 2027. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you for listening. Sorry once again for the inconvenience for my presentation with a lot of cuts and everything, but you have here my email if you want to receive more information. If somebody is interested in the Galician regulation of artificial soils, I can send it by email. I'm afraid it's only in Galician and in Spanish, sorry for that. But there is a lot of information. I think that that technical regulation could be very useful for people who are trying to work in this new technology and trying to do projects. And because this technical regulation was devised for commercial projects. Okay, then at this stage, I think we can work in commercial projects in Galicia with this technology because we have the possibility to work, and we are using it. But I think once again that is the only part of the Europe that has a technical regulation, as far as I know. And also, if somebody knows that there is some kind of regulation, technical regulation regarding technosols, I will be happy to receive it for you. Okay. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I take a look to the chat.
Thank you, Ruben, and thank you for the conclusion and the point of regulation that is important in the concept of technosoil. There is no question in the chat, but if somebody wants to ask question directly. No question, okay. So we can invite the last speaker.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Cecile.
So Renaud Deric, you can open the video and you can share your screen and
all right.
So listening to you.
Let's share. Just one moment.
Waiting for the presentation, Ruben, there is an information, a question in the chat that they ask information about the regulation in Galicia, and I know that you told us that something is existing, but everything is in Spanish or something is not translated. Yeah.
Yes, Cecilia, I am sharing Clara in the chat. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Can you see the screen?
Yes, no problem.
Perfect. Excuse me for the background noise, but I'm not in my office. I'm in one of my clients, so they make some music. So hello everyone. So I would like to introduce you to this survey regarding technosoil, and I thank the Solver to have invited me. We have a project here in Wallonia, which is Belga Soils, which is regarding the construction of technosoils in Wallonia. The idea is to produce technosoils from construction demolition waste with low recycling recovery potential, amend with green waste and maybe some additives, depending, of course, legislation possibilities, and meet diverse needs for recapitalization of degraded areas of other areas. We have a study phase just to measure the quality of the technosoil, and we have also in situ trials on the slope of RIP, a small artificial hill that are just under construction. The three partners of the project are Belgarena, which is industrial specialized in waste treatment, Atrasol, which is my office, consulting office, and the University of Jean Blou Agrobiotech for all the test and analysis party. We win some project and receive some help from Wallonia and Europe. So, of course, the idea is to produce some technosoil with several ecosystemic services. But the idea of the survey was to have an idea of the market, an idea of the perception of the technosoil from the people. And we've made two surveys. The first one, 2023-24, with 120 contexts. Not so much people response, of course, and we made some interviews. And last year we made a conference with ASENAS, which is the Association of Soil Contractor, FedExSol, the Association of Consultant, Soil Consultant, and ICEP that you have heard as first speaker of the day. The target was to reach soil experts, contractors, and also project developers, public authorities, some facilitator, and also citizens were also able to answer the survey. So I will just give you some features and not all the graphics and statistics. The first remark we had was that the subject was still in 2023-24. The subject was quite new for the stakeholders. Most of them were thinking that technosoil could have a bright future. Some will think that the application of technosoil will remain marginal. And many people point the regulatory challenges because there are a lot of legislation regarding the use of artificial soils, because it's a mixture of waste legislation, excavated soil legislation, and also compost legislation, and so on. Some people mention also the technical challenges of the production of technosoil. Regarding the ecosystem services, the highest interest in technosoil were regarding living application, fertility, biodiversity, and drainage, so removing some water from the soil. There was also a significant interest in carbon storage, and not so much interest in water tightness or impermeability of the soils. The application, we asked the people, what application do you see for that kind of soil? They mentioned urban agriculture, greening urban areas as parks, roundabouts. We have a lot here in Wallonia, green roofs, and so on. And of course, the rehabilitation of degraded sites. And all those use are consistent with the results of the trials and the lab test we made with the University of Liège. We asked the people, what do you think about the price and the barriers regarding the development of the market? Most of them say that the price should not exceed the one of the natural soil, but some were agreed to pay a little bit more if there was a clear added value a performance or a functionality, a specific functionality. The main barrier of the use of Technosoil: complex legislation, the waste statute, the lack of certification, the heterogeneity of the product because they will come from a variability of resources, and environmental and long-term risk, releasing some pollutant in the long term and so on. The second survey, we remarked that the people were more concerned, and of course, it was during a conference, but we let the survey in the website, and we received some answers. Most of the people have some idea about what technosoils are, and 32% were only discovering the topic. And the perception was more positive. Technosoil are seen as promising with significant growth potential, of course, if the legislation supports their use. Expected ecosystem, the same, water retention, biodiversity, drainage, also resistance to erosion, carbon storage in soil, and impermeability is generally not requested. So we will probably not go with that in the future. Application, also urban greening, protection of soil resources, rehabilitation of degraded site, and urban agriculture, and also use for plants where you parks and gardens. Still consistent with the trials. Main challenge the same, but the need for traceability and independent certification was also mentioned. So the results are quite converging to these 5 points. There is a consensus that Technosoil and Neosoil have a promising future. The market is not yet mature. It's an emerging market. There are a lot of technical, environmental, and regulatory challenges, but they are identified. The traceability and the quality insurance are seen as very important. And in Wallonia, we have a specific legislation for the traceability of excavated ground, and Technosoil can maybe join that kind of legislation. And of course, an independent certification, as we have for the recycled granulate from waste, construction waste. The condition to develop the market, the legislation must be very clear and visible. The solution must be well defined, including the end of waste solution and regulation, because one way to use Technosoil is to use the end of waste procedures. But for that, you have to demonstrate there is a market, and to demonstrate there is a market, you should provide some products. Regulatory and possibly financial incentive are quite interesting to receive. Independent certification scheme will be probably very, very important too. And we have to give guarantee on technical performance and environmental safety regarding short term, which is quite clear, but also regarding long term, the availability of a substance that can release in the environment after a few decades. The recommendation we have, so we should base the development of the Technosoil activity on the experience gained with recycled aggregate, acceptance, certification, specification, and guarantee. Recycled aggregate at the beginning were not very well accepted, but now they are more accepted in many construction projects. We must be sure of the traceability system and quality control. There are in Wallonia some strategies regarding circular economy, and of course, Technosoil are clearly positioned as a circular way of reusing waste and materials, which can bring to resource savings. And all the interested people should work closely with the public authority to co-design a sustainable regulatory and practical regulatory framework. That's it for the survey. So if you have some question, I will be pleased to answer you.
Thank
Try
you.
to find out the
Thank you, Renaud, for last presentation, which is more an overview of what is going on in Wallonia and how is the market for Technosoil and what the perspective for Technosoil. It seems that there is still the problem of regulation. That's still a question. And maybe can you, is it possible right now to say which kind of parameters for you are very important for Technosoil and for certification? Pollution, you speak about the problem of pollution, but contamination, maybe more other parameters are very important to guarantee the long-term life of Technosoil.
Yeah, for us, a very easy solution is to follow the excavated soil legislation, which consider the degree of pollution acceptable in soil regarding their use. So we have 5 types of soil, and type 1 is agriculture, type 2 is forest, type 3 is housing, type 4 is services, and type 5 is industry. And if one of the 100 parameters, measured parameters, is higher than the limit of the type 5, it's considered as a polluted soil. And the idea is to build Technosoil from type 1, 2, 3, for instance, or 1, 2, 3, 4, to reuse that, to take the basis of the Technosoil will be a matrix of soil of, let's say, for instance, type 2, and they should be reused as type 2, 3, 4, or 5 after their construction. So the idea is not to use polluted soil to build the Technosoils.
Yeah. Okay. There is a question in the chat. It's interesting that the constraint and condition you name for Wallonia are in the same in Netherlands, especially the legislation where you have a mix of soil legislation and waste legislation and the need for certification scheme.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you just speak about, I think, the soil legislation, but how about the waste legislation?
Well, the waste legislation, the soil legislation will consider the excavated ground and also the reuse of the soils. The waste legislation will consider the construction waste you put in the soil, which should be inert and not hazardous, for instance. And other legislation consider, for instance, compost. If you want to improve the soil quality with compost, you have to follow the compost legislation. Specificity that we have in Belgium and probably not in Netherlands is that the compost certification is a federal problem, and waste and soil are a regional problem.
Okay, the specificity of Belgium.
And if we want to add additives in the soil, which are not waste, but some products, as for instance, lime or things like that, of course, we need a lot of authorization as well, or biochar.
Okay. Okay, thank you.